We all have way more influence than we think we do. And so a good phrase that I find to say is, I'm taking that my board member hat off. This is really me asking a question as a small group leader. Another one, if you do have ideas to share, to say, hey, this is just a perspective. This is not a directive as a board member. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the LeadingSmart Podcast, Leading in Real Time. Where are you in real time, Tim Stevens?
I am in Chicago, which is kind of where I live. If you're in Chicago, I don't say I live in Chicago. I say I live in Crystal Lake. But if you're in Houston, I say I live in Chicago because I'm in a suburb. But I'm actually in Chicago today, downtown, helping volunteer at an event with Generation Distinct, which I think we've talked about before as an organization is dear to my heart. And so we're going to pour into Gen Z young adults for the next 3 days.
So cool. That is awesome. Yeah, we love, I guess we had, what was that?
We did a call in. We did a
Yeah.
random call to
In
Hannah
season
and Aaron.
2. It was season 2 in your 40 lessons in
Yeah.
40 years. That was right. I was like, did we have a segment where we did that? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. That was awesome. I know most people listen to this with their ears wherever they listen to podcasts, but we do have some YouTube viewers. And I'm not in my normal professional gear. I'm in my walking gear today. I was supposed to have an 8:30 a.m. meeting here in Houston, like an in-person meeting. And then they texted me like an hour before and were like, can we postpone? I was like, yes, we can. So I put on my walking gear and went for a long walk this morning, which I just feel so much better when I do that. It's funny how it's easy to say that in hindsight when you're like, ugh, I don't really want to go on a walk. But then I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. It always helps reset everything for me.
But in July, isn't it like walking through soupy air in Houston?
It is. It wasn't too bad this morning. Yesterday, it was the high here yesterday was 103 degrees. But today, I think the high is only 90 because we've got some tropical something coming in. So it actually was pretty lovely this morning. I think it was probably in the 80s, but there was a breeze and it was
By
great.
something, I think you mean a tropical storm that might turn into a hurricane. I think that's what you meant.
Yeah. It's probably me suppressing my anxiety that comes with hearing the
Yeah.
word hurricane in Houston.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to troll you about one more thing before we jump into today's topic. So you posted on Instagram you posted a video talking about our gatherings that are coming up, which if you haven't heard about that, check out leadingsmart.com. We've got 3 gatherings coming up in 2027 in the winter and then our large church gathering in the fall. But you started the reel and you were like, I am coming to you from the top of a mountain after a hike up here to this mountain.
Hey friends, I am in Chilliwack, Canada, getting ready to meet with a church up here and some of my favorite people in the world who lead this church. And I took a short hike up on top of a nearby mountain, very short hike. I'm not a hiker.
And I was like, Tim,
You were like, that's so me, right?
Yeah. I literally have never heard you use the word hike in your life in our relationship over the past 12 whatever years it's been. So define hike. Was this really a hike or was this like a paved sidewalk that you walked up?
I was hoping for a paved sidewalk, flat with no incline at all. It ended up being like a hike. It was probably, I want to say 25 minutes. And it started out as kind of like this wandering wide gravel, thing through the woods. I was on Chilliwack Mountain in British Columbia, but I drove most of the way up the mountain and then parked and then went up this winding trail. And then it was like, the lookout is this way. And it went off onto a relatively steep, like you don't want to step 12 inches to the left or you're going to fall. Incline with steps and roots and rocks. But that portion of it was maybe, I didn't time it. That was probably 15 minutes of it. And the first part was like 10 minutes. But I got up there. I was heaving a little bit. I was sweating. I was glistening.
There you go. That was so funny. I was dying going, okay, I'm going to have to ask him on the podcast about define hike because I'm not sure.
I had to do, I think, 5 takes because I didn't think ahead. I didn't plan for insects. I didn't have the right shoes on. It was just like a random thought. I was working hard in a hotel. I'm like, I got to get out of here for a minute. And so I thought I'll go for a drive. And I knew about that lookout spot.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't prepared for it. So I had to do 5 takes because I was swatting flies. And so then I had to stop and start again. And
man, I wish you'd saved it.
It's rough doing this.
Right? It's rough being an influencer on Instagram, Tim.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I am.
Your Instagram is blowing up, by the way. If you guys if you're not following Tim A. Stevens on Instagram, you've got over 3,000 followers. And we just started our Leading Smart as well. That's a new thing for us. So yeah, check us out, follow us. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are here today to talk about the challenges that board members face. We do lots of work with church boards. We're doing more and more of it. Even when we're not doing like board governance work, we are usually talking to boards about other things like succession planning or culture or strategic advising in some capacity. And in the spirit of me wearing a hat today, we're going to be talking about the different hats that board members wear. So my thought here is we're on staff at a church, like a lead pastor, executive pastor, we're on staff at a church. Would love for us to hear this and have empathy for our church board members. It can often be a point of tension. We're like, they don't understand us, or why are they being so micromanaging? Or maybe it's, why are they so disengaged? So to have empathy for them and that role that they play. And then if we're a board member listening to this, to be able to have a point of reflection of going, okay, what is my role? What are the hats that I wear? Where might it look like I'm overstepping or need to be more engaged, et cetera? So what was your inspiration for wanting to have this conversation today, Tim?
I was having a conversation with a gentleman who had become a new board member at his church. This was probably a year ago. And he was just really struggling. He wanted to do good work. It was unclear at that time. We helped him figure this out, but it was unclear at that time, like, what does it mean? Like, what have I been asked to do to be a board member? And this is a guy who'd been at the church for a really long time, and he'd served, I think, in kids ministry for a while. He'd served in the parking lot for a while. He'd helped with men's ministry for a while. I think he was a small group leader at the time we talked. And then suddenly he was asked to wear another hat as a board member. And what he was struggling with, and what a lot of board members have to figure out, is when to wear that hat, what it means when they wear that hat, and when they actually need to take it off, when it's unhelpful to walk into the room as a board member. And that's really hard. I think, it takes a while to be in that seat before you're like, oh, okay, I think I've got this figured out. And we as churches sometimes make it confusing because we don't have good clarity around that. So I think that's what got me thinking about it, and then us talking about it.
Yeah. We've also been doing a lot of thinking and talking about boards lately. We did a webinar yesterday, I guess by the time this comes out, maybe about a week ago, where we talked about the 5 shifts from managing to governing board. And we'll talk to you a little bit about this in a few minutes, but it's official. Our Healthy Church Board Masterclass that we've been working on for a few months is available for pre-order. So we're going to tell you more about that. So hang on through today's episode where we'll unpack everything we've been working on behind the scenes. So, okay, let's talk about the hats. Let's talk about all the hats. I feel like I should have like hat props here.
If I had planned ahead, I would have a hat on. I don't think I have one with me, so I'm going to go without. So let me just talk about it from this standpoint. I'm going to talk about the hat you wear as a board member, and then we'll talk about when you should have that hat on and when you shouldn't. And obviously, we're going to be talking in general terms in a lot of cases because we don't know your specific situation. But we do work with a lot of boards. One foundational belief we have here when we're working with boards is that a board member and the board should only operate when they're having a board meeting and not separately. Meaning, when you're in the boardroom and you're grappling with an issue or trying to figure something out or planning for the future, that's when everyone's together and you have your board hat on and we're all focused on this and we're maybe making a decision or we're at least having a conversation, we're moving something along. As soon as you leave that room, you no longer have that board hat on. And why that's important is I've been on a church board, I'm on a church board, and I've been on church staff as a pastor at a church. So it's confusing when you're on a church staff. They know who their board members are, most of them. It's usually not hidden. And so when you walk into the room and you have your board hat on, or they assume you have your board hat on, you actually have to say out loud, I'm not here as a board member. You might have been a small group leader at your church or Sunday school leader at your church for years. And so that hat everyone knows you by, and it's what you're comfortable with. Then suddenly you become a board member. And now you walk back into those same rooms and they assume you're carrying authority. And it's really important for you as a board member to just say, hey, like I'm asking, like you might be asking a question about, hey, what about the small group curriculum, or why are we doing this or why are we doing that? A totally appropriate question as a small group leader. not an appropriate question as a board member. And so you just have to like help disarm the awkwardness maybe around that by just saying, hey guys, I know I'm a elder here or a board member here or on the consistory. I'm taking that hat off right now. I just have a question as a small group leader. Help me understand, da, 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 da. And that's just really important to bring clarity to those rooms, to remove the awkwardness of those rooms. There's power dynamics, whether you want there to be or not. And so to be like just cognizant of that and to say that out loud.
Yeah, a good phrase that I think helps, regardless of whether you're a board member or you're a leader. I mean, we all have way more influence than we think we do. And so, a good phrase that I find to say is, I mean, you gave a great one, which was, I'm taking my board member hat off. This is really me asking a question as a small group leader. Another one, if you do have ideas to share, to say, hey, this is just a perspective. This is not a directive as a board member.
Good.
Like literally just brainstorming, just perspective, not a directive. That can really help disarm, especially if it is a more junior level staff member that's going to hear what you say. And everything you say has 10x the weight of anybody else in the room. And so to acknowledge that, I've heard that a lot I've even said this before, like, I'm just trying to help, but
Yeah.
we can actually do more damage because we don't understand the weight that we carry. I'm not on our church board, but I feel that weight as someone who does church consulting for a living. And I'm brainstorming with a member of the staff at my church, because we're very involved, and I'll just like make an offhanded comment. And then months later, it'll be like, well, you said that one time. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was just throwing that out there as an idea. But of
Yeah.
course, they hear it from me as like, oh, Holly must really know what she's doing. It's like, no, it was just an idea. So that's such a good one. Verbally say, I'm taking the hat off, or this is just a perspective, not a directive as a board member.
Yeah. And I mean, it's maybe awkward to do. The other thing that we can do is we can help kind of educate our church on what it means to be on the board. And as a board member, you can do that probably better than anyone else. What that means is someone comes up to you on a Sunday morning and they say, man, the volume is so loud in here. You're board member Joe. You need to go talk to the board and fix this. And for you, that might be a extreme example, but whatever it is, you're going to have that. As soon as people find out you're on the board, they're going to corner you and try to have a conversation with you. And I think what you can do in that moment is just clarify, you know what, Joe, that's not actually the responsibility of the board. You should talk to our creative arts pastor, our director, our sound tech, whatever. I mean, that's the appropriate thing, is to talk to the appropriate person on staff. Or if you have some kind of a general feedback loop at the church, just put your notes there. That's great. I'm sure the staff would love to hear that. They may not love to hear that, but they maybe should hear that. So, and you'll have that happen 10 times a week of just people coming up and saying, hey, this, and can you fix that and whatever, and just have to clarify, hey, you know what, that's not actually, our job is to govern. Our job is to be at the highest level, make sure that we're reaching, that we're heading towards the goal, the outcomes that we need to, that's part of our mission here as a church. And we're here to guard that and to protect the church legally. And so great question. That's just not something I can help you with. You'll have to talk to the staff.
Yeah, that's so good. Such a good one, and so humbling, especially when we want to be the person who has answers or wants to help.
Yeah.
To just be able to, what is the phrase? Is it delegate authority? Is that right? I feel like you do this really well, Tim, just in your life, like, oh, go ask that person. Or here, even though you could help, delegating that authority through your influence that you have to somebody on the team.
In your response, you're helping them learn the right way, the path. You're not saying what your question is invalid or unhelpful. You're just saying, I'm not the right person to be asking about that. And I think for most, if this is a struggle for people, a concept that's a struggle to understand, just think about it in your daily life. Sometimes I'm wearing a hat as a dad. Sometimes I'm wearing a hat as a husband. Sometimes I'm just a really good friend. Sometimes I'm a subordinate. Sometimes I'm the boss. So like we're all wearing different hats. And sometimes as a parent of adult children, you go from kind of wearing the boss parent, I'm in charge hat, to the peer hat, to the friend hat. Like I'm not going to say anything unless you ask a question. And even then my words are going to be measured because you're 29 years old or 33 years old. So we're all wearing different hats, and we're all learning kind of how to navigate those hats and the relationships that we are. But sometimes I think, especially with board, sometimes it's really helpful just to say it out loud. I remember a pastor talking about the time his son was on staff, and about the time he had to fire his son. And he said, he actually used that analogy, and his son's in the office and he says, son, right now I have my pastor hat on and my boss hat on, and you can no longer work at our church. I'm sorry. And then he
Yeah, that's
says,
fair.
I'm going to put my dad hat on now, and I'm going to come alongside you, and we're going to get through this, and I'm going to love you through this, and this is not the end of the road. Just kind of like actually said out loud. I hate that I
Mm,
have to wear two different hats in this conversation, but let's be open about it.
yeah. As you were telling that story, Tim, I was thinking about one of the nuances of ministry in a church setting that the board role is different from any other nonprofit is the depth that we're doing life with the people that we're seeing usually on a weekly basis. I'm thinking if you're on the board of any other normal nonprofit, especially definitely a company, but let's just use the 501(c)(3) nonprofit analogy. Yeah, maybe you see them once a month if you've got like an activity that you do together, maybe. But when you're in small group or see, these folks every week, like that makes it so complex. And that's why understanding and then clarifying and recognizing these hats and roles are so important because when you combine sometimes what you just said, right? Like familial, spiritual, social, this not really work, but we all have kind of a corporate responsibility being on the board together and you throw that all in a bucket and you mix it all together. Like that's confusing. And I don't know any other setting where that's going to be the case.
And that's why, I mean, you've heard people say pastoring is one of the hardest jobs on the planet, and people who are in corporate and they have 2,000 employees, they're like rolling their eyes at that. That's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, you're not spiritually in a corporate setting. You're not spiritually involved in the lives of these people. You're not interacting as much with their kids and their spouses, and their best friends and their aunts and their parents as you are in the church context when everything is interwoven. And that's why I like leading a church, and even being a board member of a church is super complex. There's just so many, like you said, all of the different levels of human relationships that interweave in the context of church leadership.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, anything else on the hat wearing of a board member? And then I've got a question I want to ask you.
I don't think so, but I do have a question about hats, but not about the hat members of a board member.
Okay,
This
what?
hat that you have on, if our
Yeah,
YouTube audience knows, Get Mom Ready. What the heck is Get Mom Ready? I actually know the answer, but I'd love to hear you say it.
well, thank you. I guess, yeah, we can segment. This can be like our little random segment, and then we'll
Okay,
come back.
it did go
It'll be,
random.
yeah,
Okay.
it'll be our random segment in a random part of the podcast today.
Okay.
um,
Unplanned random segment.
Yes, Get Mom Ready is a podcast that I co-host with three other mom friends. Yeah, sorry, I was like, did I say it's a podcast? A
Yes.
podcast that I co-host with three other mom friends, just about stories about other moms navigating work and life, and just the challenge and adventure that all of that is. So we've been at it for almost a year. We just recorded our 1 year reflection episode, and yeah, it's been so fun to have that community on a weekly basis, and then to learn a lot along the way. So that's Get Mom Ready.
Yeah, I've forwarded that to several young moms. So if you know a young mom or are a young mom, and I say young mom, I think all of you are moms of young kids, but
Yes.
that will
Mhm.
grow, I'm sure, over time because your kids will get older. But it's a
Exactly.
really good resource.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes. Okay. Shwing back to I have a church question for you. What would you say to senior leaders on staff at a church, whether they're a lead pastor, an executive pastor, or another role, of just like a reminder or advice where we can have empathy if we're in a season where we're feeling frustrated with our board and them not knowing, like we got this question. It was a little bit of a different question on the webinar yesterday, but I feel like it was similar. It was like, how do I help my board go from managing to governing, or in this case, go from understanding the different hats because they're not doing a good job of understanding the different hats and taking them on or off. What can we do if we're on staff at a church to help guide that process or that conversation?
Yeah, I would say believing the best about these folks, realizing that almost all of them have good intentions. I have met the ones that don't, and there are board members out there that just want to control. Most of them, that's not true. Most of them, they love their church. They are in a relationship with Jesus. They want this church to thrive. They've been asked to do this role, maybe not given a lot of clarity around it many times. So what they're doing then is they're just bringing what they know to be true from their past, which sometimes is not helpful. If like, well, I've been on a corporate board, or I was on the board with the Salvation Army, or we started a nonprofit 12 years ago and I was the first board member. So there's things that, experiences they've had where they're like, okay, I know what it means to be a board member because of my experience, which may or may not translate into the church. So I would say first, just realize they probably have good intentions. So I always try to think, okay, well, like, what am I as a leader doing that's making this confusing or not bringing clarity? And that's where I think we can help educate. That's part of I think it was the first 3 modules in the 10 modules that we put together for the board masterclass. The first 3 are just helping our board just realize what is our role as a board. Like, why do we exist? Why is this important? And helping them kind of, if they're in the kind of like close to the ground, into the weeds, how do we help them get up here where they're governing at a higher level? Because we have staff, and most churches have staff, and the staff can be in the weeds. What we need to do is set really good policy so we stay between the lines, and so we can accomplish the mission.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned the board masterclass. So as the recording of this episode, if you're hearing this today, it is available for pre-order. You're only the second audience that's heard the news. We announced it on our webinar yesterday. Yeah, I'm like, what day is it? Woo!
Yes.
Announced it yesterday. And so this is our second time. We have not even sent an email about it. We have not told our full audience. So if you are listening to this, you are some of the first to know. But Tim, talk to us about your heart behind and your why behind creating this digital masterclass for healthy church boards.
Yeah, 2 things come to mind. One is just our heart. We talk to so many churches where the board and the pastor, there's some kind of tension there. And it could be a church, and this often is true, it could be a church that's growing and they're seeing lives changed and people giving their lives to Jesus. And yet there's this frustration, this tension between the pastor and the board, and the pastor's about to pull his hair out or her hair out and leave. And that's just like, for us, it's just like makes our heart heavy, because it's like, that doesn't have to be. This is just lack of good systems, lack of good process, lack of good clarity. And so that's one of the reasons, and we've been doing it for 3 years now. We've been working with churches directly, helping them get healthier in their board. The second reason was we realized we can't work with every church that needs help with their board. So we're working with maybe 15 or 20 churches at a time specifically on board stuff. And so we realize there's hundreds of thousands of churches, and many of them will either not be able to allocate the resources, or they just know that, hey, we can probably do this on our own with a little bit of help. So what we did is we put this board masterclass together, and let's put everything we know about board health kind of on the bottom shelf and do it in small chunks. These modules that Holly and I recorded in June, earlier this summer, are 15 minutes on average length.
Yep.
And so the idea is you can listen to them in a board meeting, one every meeting, just listen to one. We have reflection questions, exercises, things that you can do to go along with it, tools, resources, so you can, if you haven't built out your limitations, if you haven't built out your outcomes, if you haven't built out your monitoring calendar, things like that are just process system things that will make your board operate in a more healthy fashion, the tools are there. And so it's kind of like a resource that you can take and plug and play, and if we can help you along the way, we will. But we really designed this so you can do it on your own.
Yeah, totally. There's 11 lessons that we've broken down into 3 different parts. So part 1 is recognizing the governance challenges. There's 3 under there. To that question that I asked Tim a few minutes ago on if we're on staff at a church, how do we begin to have these conversations without being like, you guys stink. I'm frustrated with you. How do we start to this is a great, the first 3 lessons are Tim and I having that conversation so that you can set yourself up to just kind of be the host and facilitator rather than being accusatory or having to feel like you're the bad cop, So those are the first 3 lessons. Then the second part is establishing the governance framework. And then the third part is practicing healthy governance over time. So that second part, we're literally going to help you build your operating system for how you should be operating, but contextualized to your DNA and your values. And then the healthy governance over time, things like meeting agendas, making sure that we have good onboarding, et cetera. Yeah, we recorded it in a studio. It's really high quality. As Tim said, we've designed it to where you can watch one per board meeting for basically a year. Or you could book a retreat. I think in total, I think I did the math, Tim, and it's about 3 hours or so of content. So you could have a 2-day board retreat, kind of break it up. And every single lesson, it's not just the video content. It has a comprehensive workbook that accompanies it with reflection questions and a tool for each of those sections. Lots of templates, appendices. I mean, it is like, churches hire us to come on a retainer basis to do this. And we're offering it in a digital masterclass where you and your board can journey through it together. So go check that out at leadingsmart.com. Click on Healthy Church Board Masterclass. You can read all about it and you can purchase it right there. And if you have any questions, email us, Tim at leadingsmart.com, Holly at leadingsmart.com. We'd love to answer your questions and hope that you can take advantage of it.
2 more things I'd say about that. One is if you're like, I'm not really sure, just send us an email and say, hey, can you send me a link to the webinar? I missed the webinar. We don't normally send that out except to the people that signed up for it. But if you're interested, it's the 5 shifts to go from a managing board to a governing board. So we'd be glad to send that link to you. And the second thing I would say, if you're a small church, if you have under 300 in-person attendance, or you're a church plant getting ready to start and you want to set your board up right, send us an email and just say, hey, send me the discount for small churches. And we really want to make this available for everyone. So we'll shoot you a special discount if you're just getting started or a small church.
Shout out to, I hope he listens to this. He'll know who he is. I was on a call with someone who's on a church board of a church in, I think it's North Dakota. Yeah.
Nope.
South Dakota. Dang it. He's probably laughing at me if he's listening to this.
People in Texas are like, it's just up there somewhere. We don't really know.
Well, I told him I've been to Montana, but I've not been to the Dakotas. They're like 2 of the only states that I haven't been to. So anyway, my point is he was so generous. See, I was telling him about this and kind of picking his brain because he was kind of in my head as we were creating this as a person who I knew would really appreciate this, the value of what we've created. And he was like, Holly, I mean, we would love to even say, if there's a church out there that can't afford this, tell us, because we would love to help provide it for them. And I was just blown away, at that generosity in his heart, because he believes in creating a healthy board so much that church would be willing, help offset that cost. So anyway, you know who you are if you're listening. It really meant a lot to me to hear that from him.
Amazing.
All right. Well, we already did our random segment, but anything and everything we talked about today, you can always find it over at leadingsmart.com. And again, email us, Tim at leadingsmart.com, Holly at leadingsmart.com. Tim, I hope you have an incredible time with Generation Distinct there in Chicago. It's an incredible organization. I know the youths are going to learn a lot.
Yeah, they're so young.
They really are. I feel very old these days when I think about the youths. Anyway, have a great time, and I can't wait to hear about it on our next episode. Bye, everybody.
See y'all next week.
Well, we at Leading Smart are so excited to announce the Healthy Church Board Masterclass. We believe that a healthy church board changes everything. So we've created this masterclass for church boards of all shapes and sizes, locations, theology. Wherever you find yourself, if you are on a church board, this masterclass is for you. Tim, why are we doing this masterclass?
We've been talking about this for months, maybe a couple of years, because we have a heart for pastors and a heart for healthy churches. And we see too often when a healthy pastor and a healthy church are driven apart from each other because of an unhealthy board or an unhealthy board relationship. And so we just think that health from that level, it filters down into the entire church, filters down into the staff, and it just gives that church a chance to thrive. And that's what we want. We want to see thriving churches. And so we do this every week with churches across the country, but we realize we can't get to every church.
And so we wanted to make this as scalable and as accessible as we possibly could.
It comes with 9 video lessons, and every single lesson is accompanied by a tool, reflection questions, transcripts from the lesson, and we even have a bonus video, which is about 20 of our frequently asked questions around what does it look like to build a healthy church board. So our invitation is to invest in yourself as a board member, invest in your board, and ultimately your church and your community, because a healthy church board impacts the healthy kingdom that we're all working together to build. So go to leadingsmart.com where you can learn more and purchase the Healthy Church Board Masterclass.